For today's video, we tested something that in this form no one had tested before. You might remember my simracing PC buying guide from February, where we compare different resolutions and setups for various budgets. As a result, none other than AMD took notice of our awesome hobby, sponsored this video and gave us the chance to test some of their GPUs and X3D CPUs to see what's possible, whether certain upgrades are worth it, and what performance gains you can expect when switching, for example, from a Ryzen 7 7800 X3D to a 9800 X3D. So I tested and benchmarked the hell out of 4 CPUs across 5 different racing titles, FPS and bosses like LMU, Le Mans at Night and in the Rain or iRacing Daytona are of course included, and this is the first of a 3-episode series in which we'll also explore interesting budget-friendly solutions for sim racing setups. Let's go! And with that, welcome back to Overtake. I'm Michel, and first we should define the goal of this test. It's simple. We want to find out, in a real-world scenario, which upgrade within the AMD X3D lineup really makes a difference, and determine whether there's an absolute top-tier racing CPU. Why AMD X3D, and what does that even mean? Back in April of 2022, AMD launched this new product line. It was a little revolution. It delivered significantly better gaming performance thanks to an additional stacked L3 cache chip called 3D V-Cache. This allows a lot of data to stay readily available in this fast cache instead of having to be fetched from the much slower RAM, which is especially relevant for physics calculations, and sim racing naturally involves a lot of those. And now we're in the AM5 era and things move forward even. And this is our test setup for today. A really nice SimLab rig featuring the 28mm SimMagic Alpha Evo Ultra, the new Zeus wheel, Asetek Forte pedals, Heusingfeld shifter, and a 49-inch Samsung G9 running at 5120 by 1440 and 240 Hz. Let's also take a quick look at our PC system. At the heart of it is the Gigabyte Radeon RX 9070 XT Gaming OC with 16GB of memory. I pushed it to 100% GPU usage across all titles to see whether a CPU upgrade could squeeze out even more FPS from our system. After all, in sim racing, as well as in titles like Forza Horizon 6 or F1, you want the highest possible frame rate. No drastic frame drops and low input latency as a result. Personally, I notice a clear difference between driving at 60 FPS versus over 100 FPS, especially if it's stable and has a little bit of headroom. Let's take a look at the first test case then and see how the AMD Ryzen 7 7800 X3D performs. In the Ultimate, I came up with 2 scenarios. One is the classic, Spa GT3 of course, and the other is Le Mans with a rain start into the night, a full field of drivers and 45 visible cars max. In other words, the worst case scenario. 5120 by 1440 is already quite demanding. That's dual QHD, not far off from 4K in terms of pixel density, and simply a great resolution for racing. We all agree on that, right? We're almost maxed out, except for FSAA, post effects and the texture filter. The Ultimate has a few situations that really take a toll on performance. One is the start, when many cars are bunched closely together. Nighttime and rain are 2 more conditions that can easily cost you 20 to 30 FPS situationally. At Spa and a GT3, our system easily hits 100 to 130 FPS in daylight, even during the start phase. The frame rate almost never drops below 80 during the start. That's a smooth experience that I think is perfectly acceptable. As soon as it gets dark in the game and the car's dynamic lights need to be rendered, we can't quite reach 120 anymore, but we still rarely drop below 100. It's a slightly different story at Le Mans in the rain. Larger area first and foremost, with even more track details on the side. I saw the FPS dip to 67 once during the start, but considering the beauty and detail the game was displaying, it still ran well. Once the cars spread out over the course of the race, however, the target of 100 FPS is reached in most sectors. Then the first big surprise was F125, where I ran the benchmark mode in Monaco, once in dry conditions and once in wet conditions, and it simply runs better in the rain. I kinda didn't expect that. One possible explanation is the ray tracing, because in bad weather our RX 9070 XT probably just has to calculate fewer light rays. I found a good setting here that sets most details to ultra high, or the highest possible, and for the ray tracing settings only enables reflections and shadows. Let's see if we can beat the benchmarked 74 FPS average in dry and 81 FPS average in the wet with a CPU upgrade later in this video. I can cut this short when it comes to the Forza Horizon 6 benchmarks. It's very well optimized, makes good use of the cores and delivered exactly the same results. 81 FPS on all 4 CPUs in benchmark mode, which runs a race in the middle of Tokyo in the rain. When driving just casually normal on the map, you get a stable butter smooth 90 to 100 FPS on the extreme preset with screen space reflections. Needless to say, with this aspect ratio and resolution, it's an incredible experience that looks unbelievably good. The FH6 benchmark also displays CPU simulation and CPU render FPS, which is of course valuable for our test here. And yes, for the X3D CPUs, Forza Ryzen 6 is a light warm-up exercise, nothing more. Impressively optimized. The brand new FSR 4.1 upscaling also works really well and ensures a sharp image. By the way, AMD has also included a 7800 X3D for one of you to give something back to the community. The perfect upgrade if you already have an AM5. You can find the giveaway for this now on our deals and benefits page at overtake.gg. The link is of course also in the video description. Then I was also pleasantly surprised by an Assetto Corsa Evo set to almost max in the 0.7.1 early access version with native anti-aliasing still runs at a smooth 70 to 80 FPS once the race has settled here on the Nordschleife with this beautiful Maserati GT2. Since the game is still in development and there are certainly still optimizations to come, I don't want to go into too much detail here. It was also the only game that caused issues and crashes after a CPU swap. Once I did a clean reinstall of AC Evo, everything was back to normal. It's quite possible that the hardware is analyzed on the first launch only, but that's just a wild guess. If something like this ever happens to you when you upgraded your system, now you know what to do maybe. I hope it helps. The last title in our test lineup is iRacing, a sim also known for being CPU heavy or almost being CPU bottlenecked in some scenarios. One track in particular stands out for some sectors that can cause extreme frame rate drops: Daytona. Here too, I don't want to sacrifice pretty graphics or having lots of cars on screen. I think most iRacers are more willing to compromise in that area and prefer higher frame rates. But like I said, to ensure a fair comparison of the CPUs, I naturally wanted to push the GPU to its limits. And let's see if upgrading from an AMD Ryzen 7800 X3D to the 9800 X3D delivers a noticeable FPS boost. And indeed, from 60 to 70 FPS at the start on the 7800 X3D, we see an average increase of about 10 FPS, jumping to 70 to 80 FPS going into this race, with all the settings being the absolute same. And then I think throughout the whole lap we gain about 10 FPS on average. 9800 X3D also runs very efficiently and stays a bit cooler. The main reason for that is an updated arrangement of cache and CPU cores. Thus, the already low voltage requirement of the X3D architecture can be pushed even further down without running into thermal or stability issues. For all advanced users who want to analyze and optimize their system even further, AMD also offers the Ryzen Master software and its curve optimizer. If you'd like us to dive deeper into this in another video, feel free to let us know in the comments down below. Let's switch back to F125 and Monaco, where the 9800 X3D performs similarly good. The average FPS in dry conditions jumps from 74 to 82 FPS, a 10.8% increase. In the rain it moves from 81 up to 91, which is actually a 12.3% increase. That's really good. Le Mans Ultimate was once again an interesting case. Contrary to my expectations, seeing the gains in iRacing and F1, the FPS gains were largely absent here. Both the Spa and Le Mans scenarios deliver very similar results, so if you're planning this particular upgrade, it depends heavily on the game title and also the overall configuration of your system. Let's move on to the AMD Ryzen 7 9850 X3D, which offers an even higher boost clock. Instead of 5.2 GHz, it now reaches up to 5.6 GHz. That is the only difference between the two CPUs. All other specs, such as core count, cache size, and TDP, are identical. I've already looked at many benchmarks from gaming magazines on these two CPUs, and I'm just confirming here what others have already found. There is no measurable advantage. On the contrary, the 9850 X3D runs a bit hotter and draws more power with minimal gains in edge cases. If it's installed in a pre-built system you're buying, you'll get good performance, there's no question about it. But if I had the chance, I'd always go with the 9800 X3D. Let's move on to the final chapter. AMD recently added an absolute CPU flagship to its lineup, the ultimate 16-core CPU that combines 3D V-cache technology with multitasking and application performance. AMD Ryzen 9 9950 X3D. And this thing is truly a game changer. I found a use case here that, for example, makes dual PC streaming setups obsolete. The 9950 X3D features a dual CCD configuration. A CCD is a core compute die. In this case, each one consists of 8 physical cores or 16 threads. Only one of the two CCDs is equipped with the 3D V-cache for boosted gaming performance, while the other runs at a slightly higher clock speed without the extra cache. Ideally, your game main thread runs on the V-cache CCD, while background tasks like Discord, your browser, SimHub or streaming software get pushed to the non-cache CCD. Windows and AMD's chipset driver should usually handle this assignment automatically, but with a few tweaks or more reliably using a tool like Process Lasso, you can manually pin specific applications to a given CCD to make sure you're getting the most consistent performance out of the chip. I, for example, in this case, permanently assigned the 3D V-cache cores to the Le Mans Ultimate executable and the second CCD, in this case cores 16 to 31, to the streaming software. With software encoding and the slow CPU usage preset, if you want to stream without lowering in-game settings to free up more GPU resources, this is a real alternative. It also performs impressively as a workstation CPU. After the benchmark testing, we swapped it into our video editor's PC, and Brandon was very happy with how smoothly tools like Adobe Premiere, After Effects and others ran, better timeline performance, smoother previews and less wait time when opening projects. So if you're doing creative work in addition to gaming, this is a good choice to enable everything on one system. Let's wrap up our extensive round of tests. It's safe to say that the AMD X3D CPUs for the AM5 socket really squeeze every last bit of performance out of your favorite racing games and sim racing titles. The fact that we were able to run almost all of these games at near max settings with acceptable frame rates on a dual QHD setup using the Radeon RX 9070 XT is honestly pretty impressive. I'd lower a few settings here and there to ultimately achieve a stable 100 or 120 plus FPS, but we've seen what's possible. I was blown away the moment we ran the test stream without any FPS loss. And I have to give this hardware a big shout out because the conditions on the day I ran the benchmarks weren't exactly ideal. It was easily 30 degrees Celsius in the office, no joke. So once again, a huge thank you to AMD for supporting us here, and of course to all of you for watching our videos all the way through and always being there. As always, feel free to ask questions in the comments, and see you in the next one. Bye!